This is one of my pieces, and I'm pleased with the composition of the image. Good composition isn't an accident. In this piece, it happens because the image uses a specific composition tool, the rule of thirds. You're going to learn how to use this tool in your artwork. The rule of thirds has been around for a while. It has endured because it is a useful artistic tool. Many people have used this idea to enhance their own work and to study the paintings and drawings that they admire. The rule of thirds is easy to understand and its simplicity makes it highly appealing. I've split this canvas into thirds. This is where the name comes from. It's called the rule of thirds because you're splitting the canvas into thirds. Those horizontal lines are an excellent guide for deciding where your horizon should go. As you can see, I've placed my horizon line on the bottom horizontal line of the rule of thirds grid. Those lines are a guide, and you should examine your subject matter and see if it can be placed along those lines. I see this type of composition a lot. There are many images of the earth and the sky, and in those images the horizon is often located on a guided line from the rule of thirds grid. This is a classic composition, but that doesn't mean that it should be dismissed because it's familiar. There might be a million images that use this composition, but yours will always be different. As an artist, you can always take a classic composition and create something different and unique. My image has patterns and shapes that proclaim its difference. Experimentation is always the goal, and it's good to let your instincts guide you when you create a composition. But if you haven't used one of those classic compositions, then you should try it. The rule of thirds is the composition tool that is the most familiar. And even though it creates great composition, some artists tend to avoid it because it is so familiar. But those artists are missing out on an artistic challenge. If you take something familiar and classic, then it demands that you take it to the next level. You must have established a style and technique that is true to you. There is great skill in taking a classic composition and making it your own. It's a challenge that will improve your artistic ability. I can create an image where I place points of interest where the lines intersect, and this will lead to a great composition. So what do I mean when I say points of interest? I want to control the eyes of the viewer, and I want them to see some things more clearly than others. I want to guide their eyes to particular places on the canvas. If I place something where the lines intersect or position something along one of these lines, then I know the viewer will look at those places more intently. You rarely see a viewer looking intently at the very edge of a painting, unless they're looking for a signature or they're engaged in some kind of artistic study. Some places are more important than others when it comes to a casual glance. You must capture the viewer's intention so they are willing to view the work more closely. If you're a photographer, then you can use the rule of thirds in your photography. You can get cameras that will show the grid on the screen. Then when you're capturing an image, you can consider the composition and how it relates to the rule of thirds. If you're using a computer to create your images, then you can draw this grid in your drawing software. Create a layer in Photoshop that only has the lines of the grid, and when your artwork is complete, you can hide or delete that layer. If you're an artist who uses paper, then you can draw out the grid. I'd recommend using a light color that will be easily covered up as you continue your painting. Once you have the grid, you can decide where you want to place things on the canvas. I'm going to create an image of roses. I drew this grid and now I can place a rose in various places on the grid. There are places that are more dominant than others. The points where the lines cross, these are key areas of interest. So I can place a rose head in those areas. I could alter size and shape and play with different alternatives, but positioning my main subject matter on those key areas, this will lead to good composition. Each line is a suggestion of where to place subject matter, so I can follow a line and place roses on the line. There are more alternatives than the ones I've shown. The rose head is a round shape, so it doesn't position as well on a line. I've made them smaller and created more so they can form a line and conform to a shape that's different from the one that they have. If I had a long object, I could just choose to place it on the line. Subject matter that would fit nicely in a square or circle tends to fit well in the key areas where the lines intersect. The rule of thirds gives us suggestions of where to place our important subject matter. Composition is about placement, and I wanted the roses to be the main focus. The stems were less important to me. These pictures would be dull without the rose stems, but I want the viewer to look at those rose heads first. So I've placed those rose heads in key locations, and then I decided on the shape of the rose stems based on those positions. This gave me a series of images. I decided to make the rose stems more abstract to give me more freedom, but it is the head of each rose that guides the viewer's eyes. And this is because they are placed in those key locations where the lines intersect. And I also added some other aspects to make each piece unique. The rose heads are all the same, but the stems are all different. These images ended up with good composition. This image has successful composition, but only because I made sure there was something visual in each part of the canvas. Having a close group of small roses made the composition unbalanced. There was a lot of information on the left side of the canvas and nothing on the right. Even if I'd gone to the edge of the canvas with abstract green stems, I don't think it would have been enough. The red was just too localized in one place, and because of this I felt it required stretching the red color across the canvas by using abstract shapes. The image works, but only because I was still thinking about composition. I wasn't expecting the rule of thirds to completely define the composition. There are limits to this tool. This image has terrible composition. This is what happens when you create an image that conforms too closely to the grid. I did this because I want to show you the limits of this composition tool. The piece loses all subtlety and all you can see is the grid. The rule of thirds should be used with subtlety. Don't create artwork that just looks like the original grid. This composition tool should work backstage. It shouldn't be part of the main performance. The viewer must see the painting, not the grid. There are also other limitations with the rule of thirds. A lot of artists say that the rule of thirds can't be used for portrait images. That is, images where your paper is in portrait format instead of landscape format. I think it's more accurate to say that complications are more likely to arise.